Okay. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of July 28th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville's YouTube channel. This meeting is called to order. The chair notes we do have quorum this evening. I respectfully acknowledge that we are in the traditional and unceded land of the Mi'kmaq people. We honor their deep connection to this land, past, present, and future. And I also recognize and honor the contributions and heritage of African Nova Scotians whose ancestors have shaped and enriched this community for generations. Before we begin tonight, I'll ask if there's any conflict of interest issues we should be made aware of before the meeting commences. None? Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. There are two changes. Under new business, we're going to move item B and C directly after the presentation, so it'll be 4B and C. And the one that becomes 4C should actually be appointment of the auditor for 2025, 2026. Just the wrong years are there. Okay, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Kroll. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. So before we begin, I just want to highlight a little bit from the audit committee. I'm the chair of that committee, and we met on July 21st.
Set of minutes first.
Oh, sorry. There's a set of minutes from the June 30th meeting. Are there any changes in those minutes? If there's none, we will accept them as presented. Okay. And I'll repeat what I said. We met on July 21st. The audit committee is comprised of 3 members of council, myself, as well as Deputy Mayor Kroll and Councillor Savage, and 2 citizen representatives. The draft town consolidated financial statements and an analysis of results were presented by the Director of Finance, Director Matthews, and the auditor from Kenton Duffett, Mr. Andy Forrest, shared his audit findings. He provided his independent auditor's report, which has been incorporated within the financial statements that you have in your package, and his opinion was that it was a clean audit. The statements are prepared in accordance with the Canadian public sector standards. The management letter, the topics were discussed, and there was no significant material weaknesses or significant matters found. There are going to be new reporting standards in April of 2026, and we'll learn more about those as time goes on. So I will invite Director Matthews up to give a presentation.
Good evening, everyone. You have a set of financial statements for the Town of Kentville Consolidated, as well as a set of statements for the non-consolidated Kentville Water Commission, and an analysis that was provided by me for that. So I'm not going to go through a huge amount of detail, but I would like to highlight a few points around the statement of operations and financial position. You will have noted that the town ended the year with a surplus of $198,499, which was on page 17 of your package. This amount was transferred to the operating reserve. I wanted people to be aware that there was $249,000 or so that came from Valley Waste. Related to 23-24, a surplus that happened that was not booked on our end because we didn't expect it, as well as this year they had a surplus of $84,919. Those together contributed to a significant reason as to why we had a surplus this year in the operating fund. In both the Kentville Water Commission and the sanitary sewer, there were deficits. Water Commission deficit was $39,129, and sanitary sewer was $117,213. So that was a contrast from the town operating fund. It is the second consecutive year that we've had deficits for the Kentville Water Commission, and it's the third consecutive year we've had sanitary sewer deficits. So as we've discussed previously, there's rate study underway with increased rates expected to address those operating costs and ongoing shortfalls. The any rate or implementation date for a change for the Water Commission will depend on the former URAB, which is now the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, their timelines in receiving that information from us and going through the process and then returning the results to us. You may have also noted that we had very strong returns on our perpetual fund. So you saw significant capital gains along with dividends and interest. That also contributed to a significant surplus in the reserve sides. On the statement of financial position, what often people call the balance sheet, you will have seen solid growth in reserves. So our reserve balance grew by about 1.2 million. Much of that due to that perpetual fund return that I mentioned, as well as the surplus in the operating fund and the newly instituted deed transfer tax. So deed transfer tax last year was just over 360,000. That council made motion by policy to move to the capital reserve. So that contributed to the increase. You may have also noted that there was a significant increase in our accounts receivable. So over 1.2 million increase, not related to taxes. We had green infrastructure funding for our active transportation project, and we had Donald E. Hilt's expansion, the Canada Infrastructure, get it right, the infrastructure program. So both of those had significant receivables. It was a timing issue of when we received payment and when we had to book and close year end. So those are really timing differences, along with we had a proceed on the sale of land that was negotiated and finalized at the end of March, but in April was when we received payment. So those items are 1.2 million. So not that we're in a significant cash flow challenge, but those were simply some timing differences. You will also see in statements that you received today a minor change that came through discussion and conversation at our audit committee. The bank indebtedness note has changed. We have reclassified any negative cash balances that you would see on the cash note, which I did not reference that, like in one moment. I believe that's cash note is number 4. There were negative balances within the operating water account, within the capital water and the capital general. So you'll see in the note to the financial statements under credit facilities, which is note 8, that we have added a distinction to explain that those negative accounting balances that were there for those funds are not overdraft position, but they are showing in bank indebtedness. So we have reclassified those negative balances over. The way our banking works is we have a certain group of accounts that aggregate together, and if those aggregated accounts are in an overdraft position, we would be using overdraft. If any individual of those any of those accounts are in negative, we don't go into overdraft, as long as we still have a positive balance combined. I know that's a lot. But because of that consolidation, we're not using bank indebtedness, but we are reclassifying it as such on the statements because those individual funds were in a negative. So you will have noticed that change between the report you received for review over the weekend and what you see today. And that was as a result of some active discussion at audit committee around presentation. They are, as I said, they are really related to timing differences for the capital side, so not an area of concern. However, the Water Commission operating negative is more around the sufficiency of the funding related to that area, and that balance was only $50,000, so it was very minor in relation to the total that was transferred. But overall, I think a solid financial position for the overall reserves and statement of operations on the town. And where we have some challenges, we are already putting efforts in place to address those challenges in coming years. So hopefully they will not repeat themselves. Those were the few areas. Other than the perpetual fund, you may have noticed that we've added some disclosure under note 2J, which talks about the basis on which we create our accounting policy. And under 2J, we have talked about the fact that we have a $10 million restriction on our perpetual fund. So we more clearly articulated that that's an external restriction. It's not within the purview of council to make any changes to that. And we felt that that would benefit the reader to know that that is an external restriction and how that was created, and the fact that it is permanently restricted and can't be withdrawn. So we've added that clarity for the reader as well. Those were my highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have, and unless there's anything else that the chair of the committee or CAO would like to add from the meeting that I may have missed.
I'm just not going to add anything about that.
Okay.
I'm just going to thank you and your staff in advance in case I forget, because I know it's a lot of work, and that's your busy time of the year, so we appreciate that. I'm going to put the recommendation on the floor, council, first, and then we'll keep Director Matthews up there for any questions. So the recommendation would be for the adoption of the 24-25 consolidated financial statements, including the non-consolidated Kentville Water Commission statements. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll, and Councillor Savage is the seconder. All right, I will open the floor now for questions. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Director Matthews. So I understand about separating those accounts out, but it kind of defeats the, like if you have a COBD arrangement and overall there's no negative because it's COBD, why on earth would those singular accounts be identified as overdrawn when the whole idea of consolidated offset balance is that they not show as
Overdrawn,
if that,
yeah.
as a deficit?
Yeah. So during the committee meeting, there was discussion around the substance versus form of the transactions. So are we showing a consolidated bank balance for all of the funds if that was showing as all positive with and the only thing in bank indebtedness would be if we were using our line of credit? Does that accurately reflect the substance of what is happening? So we are overdrawn for capital purposes because of those receivables. Would the substance of that suggest that we have truly a bank indebtedness for that fund, even though technically, because of the way our contract is structured, it doesn't show as such.
Right.
And so the committee debated that, and the preference of the committee was that we show it as bank indebtedness. The auditor agreed that that might be an appropriate way. I think we could have gone either way.
Okay.
However, if we were to leave the negative cash balance, we probably would have included it within the notes under that cash balance to say, although it shows negative, we have on a consolidated basis, we're positive, therefore are not using bank indebtedness.
Okay, gotcha.
So we could have put that either way.
Yeah.
The piece I think that I felt that the committee was focused on is the fact that the reader should be aware if there's a negative, whether we're using bank indebtedness or not, and if we aren't, why aren't we? Or is it, if we consider it similar to bank indebtedness for that individual fund, can we show it as such and then put some narrative around it so the user understands what it means? So we went with the bank indebtedness. It might be a topic of conversation at an upcoming audit committee around whether that we might want to debate that for next year, but it was really to add additional information for the user.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, and I apologize, I don't know which one I was looking
That's
at
okay.
here, but I have written down here, it was under specific areas of over expenditure or under revenue, and in brackets was unfavorable impact on surplus.
Right.
Okay, and so the statement was delayed start to the Donald E. Hiltz expansion and incomplete AT projects resulted in an unfavorable grant revenue variance of $2,712.18. So
Yes.
I'm wondering what that means.
Sure.
Like, does that mean we lost that money, or what does that mean?
No.
Okay.
What that means, and that was in the analysis that I had with the statements, when council approved the capital budget, they approved a significant budget amount for the Donald E. Hiltz and for AT projects. And as we talked throughout the year, there was a delay in the start of the Donald E. Hiltz.
Right.
But you approved that as a budget, so our audited statements have to show that $2+ million as an approved budget, but we didn't actually do the work, and we didn't record the revenue around that because it was delayed.
Thank you.
So it's really to try and reconcile that large budget with no actual revenue coming in, that it
Great.
was just a timing thing again.
Okay, great. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion on this? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Director. I'm on, I believe, page 3 of your presentation to the Audit Committee from July 21. And this, I'm just trying to understand this statement. It says, it's about the 4th or 5th paragraph down, starts with the consolidated statement of change in net financial assets. Page 1, detail on page 4, shows that the town can meet its obligations with its financial assets. Great. However, and this is where I underlined it, without the perpetual fund investments, the town would have a net asset position of $525K
Right.
rather than a debt position of $1,000,001.
The prior year. So we were in a net
Okay.
debt. Because of that external restriction on the perpetual fund, I've pulled out, I've said, this is what it would look like just based on all of our funds. However, we have that external restriction. So if that is removed, that $10 million, how does it look? Because we can't use that to pay for any of our liabilities.
But you can use the investment income.
We can use the investment
Yes.
income, but we can't
Yeah.
use the 10 million. So if we remove that 10 million, what does it look like? When I did that this year, we were still in a net asset position. We could cover our liabilities could be covered with our current assets. But on the prior year when I did that, we were in a net debt position, which meant our assets couldn't cover our liabilities without that 10 million year over year.
Understood. But when you remove that 10 million, do you still take into account the investment income?
Through the statement of operations, yes.
You're right. Okay.
So looking at them separately, it's saying here, the money that comes in through the statement of operations would come in generally through an increase in cash, an increased change in all of those other balance sheet accounts, so it is felt through there,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
The statement of operations is the change in that activity.
I'm going to write that down
Okay.
and go back to it. Thank you
Yes,
for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call for the question then. On the adoption of the 24-25 consolidated financial statements, including the non-consolidated Kentville Water Commission statements. And voting is open, I guess. Got to click one more time, Rob. You got to wake it up. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So part of the audit committee, we have two other recommendations. The one is the appointment of two citizens to the committee. So in July of 2024, two members were appointed by council to sit on the audit committee for a 2-year term. Mr. Mike McLean and Mr. Dave Ritzy, and policy G57. Again, as I stressed or mentioned earlier, that outlines that the mayor and two members of council reside on this committee with the two members from the public. So the MGA states that the audit committee must appoint an audit committee annually, and the recommendation would be that council appoint the following citizen committee voting members to the 2025-2026 audit committee, Mr. Mike McLean and Mr. Dave Ritzy. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll and Councillor Andrew as a seconder. Any discussion on that?
What's the term?
Well, it's a two-year term.
Two-year term, thank
In
you.
our policy, but in the MGA, you have to appoint it annually anyway, so,
Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion? Okay. So the motion is the council appoint the following citizen committee voting members to the 25-26 audit committee, Mr. Mike McLean and Mr. Dave Ritchie. That's okay. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. The final recommendation from the audit committee is to appoint an auditor for the 25-26 year. The firm of Kenton Duffett was awarded a 5-year contract in 2019. And an extension was provided by council in July of 2024. Again, we appoint an auditor annually, and the motion would be that council appoint the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year 25-26. Moved by Councillor Savage, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Kroll. Any discussion on that? The council appoint the firm of Kent and Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year 25-26. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. We're now going to move on to recommendations and reports. The first one is first reading land use bylaw amendment in the C1 zone. So at the July 14th, 2025 meeting of CAC, Director Darren Shoup reviewed the process of amending language in the land use bylaw around parking spaces in the downtown core and the purpose and opportunity for this amendment. So Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council give first reading to amendments in the land use bylaw for the general commercial C1 zone, which would allow the development officer to waive amenity requirements of a project if it is within 400-meter route of a public open space and remove parking requirements for residential units. Moved by Councillor Savage, and a seconder, Councillor Andrew. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that in the past that individuals have the ability, or they used to have the ability to, I think it was like quasi-purchase parking spaces. People still have the ability to do that, and/or are there still places that remain, maybe through you to either the CAO or the director, for people to purchase if they so wish to? And I may be dating myself. This could be going way back. I feel like I am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. That the parking in lieu is still in effect, so it remains untouched by this.
Okay, yeah. And do you know if there are spaces still remaining for parking in lieu?
I think it's based on the application. If a developer wishes to submit a cash in lieu of parking requirement, that would be based on the application. So
Okay.
there's no quota for it or anything like that, if that's what the question is.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh, great. Okay.
And there are some in town that do rent spots as well, right? Some
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to see that if we're going to do this, that we fully think it through and make sure that we have a parking strategy going forward, that it's just not a removal of one thing and then we don't have a strategy for how, if a unit goes up across the street here that exceeds 25, which we have assumed that we're not going to exceed, maybe even 8, that there would be some strategy as to how that, for the larger units, the larger buildings that would have 25 units or more would be able to park that many vehicles in downtown Kentville. But I would just recommend to this council that we look at a parking strategy.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Call for the question then. The council give first reading to amendments to the land use bylaw for the general commercial C1 zone, which would allow the development officer to waive amenity requirements of a project if it is within a 400-meter route of a public open space and remove parking requirements for residential units. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. The next item is first reading of land use bylaw amendment for 157 Main Street. At the July 14th, 2025 meeting of CAC, Director Shoup reviewed the process for amending the zoning of a property in the land use bylaw and the purpose and opportunity for this amendment. CAC recommends that council give first reading to the land use bylaw amendments regarding the rezoning application for 157 Main Street, PID 554-67070. Moved by Councillor Savage, and Councillor Maxwell is the seconder. Any discussion on this? Call for the question. The council give first reading to the land use bylaw amendments regarding the rezoning application for 157 Main Street, PID 554-67070. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Okay, Kentville Business Park tax rate at the July 14th, 2025 meeting of CAC. I reviewed the development for the Kentville Business Park and the lower tax rate for these properties, and the proposal to bring rates in line with other commercial properties. So CAC recommends that council authorize the mayor to submit a request to MLA John Lohr to have provincial legislation introduced that would see the 1983 Act relating to taxation of industrial and commercial properties in the Annapolis Valley Regional Industrial Park, being Chapter 76 of the Acts of 1983, repealed. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll and Councillor Andrew as a seconder. Any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand that this is just to have the provincial legislation introduced or have it repealed. But we would have the option, should it be repealed, approved, we would have the option to, because I think the wording is to bring rates in line with other commercial properties. So not necessarily the same, but they could be staggered, there could, and all those decisions in terms of timeframe can be made.
Right.
Should this be?
Yeah, because we'd have to set the tax rate once that's repealed, so
Yeah.
we could have that conversation at that point.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, so the recommendation is that council authorize the mayor to submit a request to MLA John Lohr to have provincial legislation introduced that would see the 1983 Act relating to taxation of industrial and commercial properties in the Annapolis Valley Regional Industrial Park, being Chapter 76 of the Acts of 1983, repealed. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. We have two policies that we want to look at repealing. At the July 14th, 2025 meeting of CAC, we looked at repealing policies around the pandemic of 2020, and we no longer need these policies. So CAC recommends that council repeal policy statement G74, COVID-19 workplace safety, and policy statement G76, COVID-19 safety policy for council. Moved by Councillor Savage, and a seconder, Councillor Maxwell. Any discussion on that? I guess we'll call for the question. That council repeal policy statement G74, COVID-19 workplace safety, and policy statement G76, COVID-19 safety policy for council. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on now to council reports. Each of us has provided a council report for monthly activities, and it's in the package. Are there any questions for any members of council based on the report that was in the package? Guess there's no questions. We'll move on now to old business. On April 8th, 2025, staff received an application from I guess it's, I don't even know how to say Kanakar, I guess, anyway, on behalf of Bell Mobility regarding the proposed installation of a 30-meter telecommunications tower at 314 Main Street, PID 555-27691. On July 15th, staff received correspondence from the proponent indicating the completion of public consultation campaigns and requesting concurrence from the town. And we have a recommendation here from our planning department that council of the town of Kentville issue a statement of non-concurrence regarding the proposed telecommunications tower at 314 Main Street, PID 555-27691, based on the following: that the proposed location tower is closer than 3 times the tower height from a property line, which conflicts with policy GD16B of the municipal planning strategy, and the proposed location is within the general commercial C1 zone where towers are strongly discouraged under section 4.1.29 of the land use bylaw. Someone could move that? Councillor Savage and Deputy Mayor Kroll as a seconder. Any discussion on that? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not that I'm not in favor of better cellular coverage in the downtown core, and especially as you noted, believe when this first came to us that 70% of 911 calls are made on cellular. So it is very important that Kentville get complete coverage. But if it doesn't, if it's inconsistent with the MPS, then I'm sorry, I can't support putting a tower there. So I would encourage Kanaker, or however you say their name, to find another location.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Even though we've said, and we'll vote on this in terms of its inconsistencies, they trump us, so to speak.
That's the way I understood it, yeah. That's
Yes.
my understanding.
Have they never, I was gonna do a double negative. Have they never not?
I'll let you speak
Do
to
they
that if
always? Or has anybody ever been successful if they've gone back and said that it's?
No, not sure, but obviously council's decision would bear weight.
Right.
So I expect they would give a second look to this to see if there is another alternate location rather than
Okay.
simply just say, sorry, we're going to put it there anyway. So I think
Okay.
it'll ask them to pause and give a second look at least.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew.
A bit surprised, actually, this didn't evoke a little more buzz around town than it has. I've had a little bit of discussion around this, and there are, some people with a variety of concerns that I'm not, certainly qualified to provide expertise for. But I certainly will support, your advocating on behalf of our own bylaws. And I think that's the very least the people of Kentville would expect. And whether we do get, trumped in this by powers greater than ourselves, that may be not something we can't do anything about. But I don't know why. I guess our meetings aren't as popular as they were at one time, and I think that's a good thing for all of us. But it does seem like some people are just kind of hearing about this now. So I think it would be remiss of us to not support you in putting forward a letter. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we will call for the question that council of the town of Kentville issue a statement of non-concurrence regarding the proposed telecommunications tower at 314 Main Street, PID 555-27691, based on the following: the proposed location towers is closer than 3 times the tower height from a property line, which conflicts with policy GD16B of the MPS, and the proposed location is within the general commercial C1 zone where towers are strongly discouraged under section 4.1.29 of the land use bylaw. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. I guess we're now on to new business, and we have one item here, a construction update, and I'll invite Director Bell up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and CAO. I titled this construction update for the grid storm, but it's actually, as you're probably aware, it's two projects that we're doing together. One is the grid funding, essentially on Main Street here, and the other is the provincial 50% paving project. So I'm going to read most of what I've written here because this was just didn't get to your package until today, so you maybe haven't had a chance to read through it. So construction is set to begin tomorrow, Tuesday, July 29th, on the east end of Main Street from Chester Avenue to Southview Avenue, and it will commence with the milling of the old top lift of asphalt this week, followed by replacement of manhole and valve box covers, then followed by the full width paving of this section, and finally line painting. So there will be disruptions to the flow of traffic from Chester to Southview. I'm sure lots of folks will. We're putting it out there certainly on socials and our own webpage, and no doubt folks will end up using Chester Avenue to sort of go around that construction area during the next couple of weeks. So there will be disruptions, as I said, and this period will last around 2 weeks from start to finish. The other phase is the start of the downtown portion of Main Street project from Aberdeen Street by the lights at the liquor store to Prospect Avenue. Is still a few weeks away as the contractor awaits the fabrication of several large manholes and concrete storm pipe for the project. So this leads to a request from the contractor to utilize the town-owned vacant lot on the corner of Church Avenue and Main Street, formerly known as the Robinson Lot. Now it had two Civics in the past, 374 and 376 Main Street, so we're trying to rebrand it as. They want to use that vacant lot as a laydown area, which would include the storage of construction materials such as concrete pipe and manholes and gravels. So the use of this vacant lot as a laydown area will greatly reduce the traffic disruptions and increase overall project safety. So that otherwise they'd have to be storing those manholes and pipes somewhere else outside of the construction zone and have large trucks going back and forth. But having a supply of gravels and the pipe and manholes right there will greatly reduce the impact on the downtown traffic. There certainly will still be disruptions as they'll essentially use the parking lane on this side, the south side of Main Street from Aberdeen Lights to Prospect for the new installation of the new pipe, and then go back and remove the old storm pipe after that. If approved by council, there will be language in a monthly lease agreement that will ensure that no hazardous materials will be stored on site and that the lot will be returned to as good or better condition after the project is completed. Expected to be 3 to 4 months, taking us into the fall. This lot could, I suppose, be put out for proposals. I know that's I think the future wish is to develop that lot and sell that lot to a developer. But in the short term, the recommendation would be to lease it to the contractor, and we do have a recommendation, which I can read after if we're ready or looking for questions.
You know what? I'm going to put that motion on the floor, and then you can stay there
thing.
in case there's any questions, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
So the recommendation would be that council authorize the CAO to negotiate a monthly lease with Dexter's Construction Company Limited for the use of the town-owned vacant lot at 374, 376 Main Street to be used as a construction laydown area for the storage of construction materials in 2025 and return it as good or in better condition at the end of the construction period. Someone could move that. Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Baker as a seconder. Any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I know that probably about 2 or 3 months ago, we started talking about issuing an RFP for that particular piece of property. And quite honestly, I don't remember if we did that in camera or if it was a public session, but I think it was public session. I hope it was.
Too late now.
I hope it was. I think it was. I'm like 99.9. So is that still ongoing while Dexter's leases the property, and will the lease be market type? You're charging the market type or what?
We would negotiate a price. It would be, a few $1,000s a month, most likely,
Okay.
to lease that land on a monthly basis. If council chooses to put the RFP out, we can give notice, that the lot's no longer available, but,
Yeah, not necessarily no longer available, but wouldn't be available. I just would hate to see that if
Yeah.
we have momentum going, that stops where it's being used for a period of 4 months. And I would expect that we would still issue that if it has not been issued already.
Well, it hasn't been issued yet. I think
Excuse me.
staff was working on it. I think, you could probably still issue it. 4 months isn't a long time
No.
for someone to wait for a piece of land, but if there's anything you want to add to that, yeah.
Just, I guess, it's council's discretion as to whether you feel it's okay to issue it now, or if you wish to wait a few months because you feel it might not attract interested developers because it's going to be a construction site.
Well, true enough, right? And I know that there's the caveat in there that they, no hazardous materials will be stored on site. I'm assuming that's gonna be monitored by,
would be, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, ourselves, inspectors, that sort of thing, and it would, like I said, it would be just construction materials such as pipe and
Sure.
manholes and
okay,
gravels of different gradations and
Right,
and things
okay.
like that, to have it
Okay.
there, and then put it back to as good or better at the end of the job. And
Okay.
I say 4 months, it will take them into late fall, so
yes,
August, September, October, November, yeah, 4+ months,
Okay.
I guess, in that,
okay, thank you.
till it's complete.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Director, if Chester Avenue is going to be accessible during this process?
So
So
the,
does it start just after Chester Avenue, or?
the phase that will start tomorrow will start on the east side of the Little Millbrook Bridge. We don't, well, we're still in discussions with the province on who owns the bridge. We feel it's not us, and they say it is. We may skim off the roughest part of that little bridge and put a small, 1.5 or 2 inch smoother lift on it. But essentially, this first phase starts on the far side of the bridge and goes to Southview, which would leave Chester accessible to folks traveling in that direction. If they wanted to avoid the construction, they could go up Chester and skip along the highway and get off in New Minas to get to there to avoid that section. There's, of course, the local folks that live in between there, and one of our finance employees asked me today, maybe I should start walking to work, because she lives in that construction zone, and she probably could walk quicker than she may have to the next few days with disruptions. It'll be intermittent. There'll be tomorrow and the next day, the milling, but that'll happen quickly. Honestly, the milled surface will probably be smoother than the current surface, because they'll take off, a few inches of pavement to get it down to a level area. It'll be kind of that rough. You probably saw that when they did other parts of town, or when they did New Minas and Colebrook a few years ago, or Colebrook just last year. The milling was actually a relief for some. And we unfortunately did have to patch pave that area, which we will be milling some of that up, but it was necessary to do at the time to get us through the few months until this project could be awarded. But and then they'll come right in, I suspect, the following week, once the manholes are adjusted and valve boxes, and pave it, and then they claim they want to put all the white and yellow stripes and hatches and arrows back while the asphalt's essentially fresh and fairly hot, because that's when it will sort of adhere the best to that new pavement. So it should be a complete project within 2 weeks of starting tomorrow.
Okay.
That phase, sorry.
And that's okay. One more question. When we do the Aberdeen to Prospect Avenue section, we're going to keep in mind accessibility for the church there on the corner, so that it will still be accessible to the public?
The one on the corner of Prospect, yes.
Yes.
Prospect.
Anglican Church.
Prospect in Maine,
Yeah.
for sure. The contractor hasn't given us a complete schedule yet. They're still waiting certainly delivery dates and things on those materials, but they may actually start at that end with the smaller pipe and lay it sort of backwards this way from high to low, and leaving the old pipe intact. But, you know, there certainly will be inconveniences to all residents and businesses through there, including the church, but we'll certainly keep them as accessible as possible. Like they're up the side street of Prospect.
Yes.
Those parking stalls that are accessible will still be open. But, yeah, the corner would be busy for sure, but there's sort of other ways to
Yeah, they're
go
probably not-
around to get there, yeah.
They're probably not working on a Sunday, so we
Typically
could
not
just
on a-
put something across
Yeah.
the trench or something.
For
Yeah.
sure, yeah, there'll be no trench, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be open and closed every night, so
Yeah.
it'll be accessible, for sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Director, I'm just wondering, the lot that you've proposed, is there a right-of-way through the NSLC Home Hardware lot through the back of that? My concern is for traffic congestion in that private parking lot. If they were driving whatever vehicle through, how would they access that? Because I think right now I'm looking at the only access to that is through Church Street. Is that accurate? Or do they have access, is there a right-of-way behind that property?
I think I understand what you're asking, Counselor, but we own the parking lot behind the vacant lot, and then once you get partway into Home Hardware's parking lot, it does become a private parking lot. So we own the first few stalls, and then the ones that are branded with the Home Hardware logo are on their side. But that is essentially, it's a through. There is I'm not sure it's a right of way or not, but it is certainly the normal traffic pattern is coming sort of into the liquor store from Main Street and driving one way through the liquor store, Home Hardware, and then the back parking lot behind the King's Arms and the vacant lot to get to Church Street or Town Hall parking lot. That will still be certainly maintained. There will be, it'll be a construction zone, and traffic can still come into the liquor store, except when we're having an open trench there, and it'll be closed. Could be closed for hours at a time, but not
just
long
wondering,
term.
with the larger vehicles coming down the road, how are they gonna offload unless they turn and go up
I
Church
see what-
Street? And Church Street is a mess right now, especially if you're gonna put large vehicles on it.
Right.
The surface of it is degrading, as you know, very well know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to, if I were driving a larger vehicle coming into that lot, how would I get there? Because I'm not seeing, it's a great place to store stuff, but it's gonna increase traffic congestion, bringing larger vehicles in there to stop and drop.
I see. For the contractors to use that lot, they will go in off of
Off Church, because it's all.
Church is the
all-
only real access,
Yeah.
other than if they open up. They may very well be able to open up as they start the construction access right from Main Street, because it's curved now, but that curb is all being certainly removed, as is the sidewalk to get into that vacant lot. I certainly envisioning them loading and offloading from that lot, and not just from Church, but potentially from Main Street. But I can get clarification.
I'm also wondering, and I apologize for interrupting you. When the contractor is moving equipment and whatnot through a one-way town, are they gonna have to make the whole circle around town, or are they gonna cut through the town hall parking lot in order to access that lot, or up Prospect and down Church? Like, there are obviously a number of ways in which they can do it, but are there any restrictions put on the vehicle traffic?
They certainly have to follow the traffic laws, or they're having traffic control people stop traffic so they can make those larger maneuvers if they're loaders or there certainly will be the times when they're offloading a flatbed of pipe or manholes, but the time that would take would be much better than what they would have to do on a continuous basis. If the lot wasn't utilized, they'd be on the street almost nonstop with a flat deck of pipe or manholes, or else a loader running through town to go to a different lot. If that lot wasn't the one used, it would be somewhere else nearby, farther away, and still nearby, maybe on the other end of town, to lug pipe or manholes to there. It won't be a simple logistic thing, but I think it's still the best scenario, certainly, that the contractor can come up with to make the job as smooth as possible, for sure. But
Thank you.
I'll ask some of those questions. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion would be that council authorize the CAO to negotiate a monthly lease with Dexter Construction Company Limited for the use of the town-owned vacant lot at 374, 376 Main Street to be used as a construction laydown area for the storage of construction materials in 2025 and return it to as good or better condition at the end of the construction period. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried.
Thank you.
Well, we've completed all our business for this evening. We now open the floor to public comments. If there's any member of the public that would like to come up to the podium and speak, you're invited up and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to tell us a story. I guess we have no public comments tonight, so I would take a motion to adjourn this meeting. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Kroll. We're gonna go in camera, sorry, we need a motion, we have confidential matters we have to discuss, so I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Savage and Deputy Mayor Kroll, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion's carried at 6:50 PM. You guys wanna take anybody want a biological, or are you guys all good? That's good. I said 45, but.